Dave! Dave!
What?
We're filming.
Oh, we're filming? Oh, okay. This is CEN News. Now reporting from Curie Elementary, Max Scott will be interviewing Henry Hudson.
Hi, I'm Max Scott reporting for Curie Elementary News, or CEN. I'm going back to the time of 1609 to interview Henry Hudson before he goes on his last voyage. First, I need to initiate the time-space continuum. Okay, now let's wait for it to warm. Are you the famous Henry? Hello, sir. Are you the famous Henry Hudson?
Yes, I am.
Do you have a little time for a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
Here we go. When were you born? Could you tell us about your family?
I was born somewhere around 1570, and I had 4 brothers. I married Catherine and had 3 sons. My favorite son was John, who joined me on many of my voyages.
What made you start exploring?
I was brave and adventurous. I was determined to become a famous explorer, and I wanted to find the Northeast Passage to the Orient so that I could become rich trading silk, spices, and gems and other precious things.
Where did you explore and what did you find?
I explored the Atlantic and Arctic waters between England, Amsterdam, Russia, America, Greenland. I went on 4 different voyages trying to find different ways to reach the Northeast Passage.
I bet you never found it.
How did you know?
Just a lucky guess. Tell us more about your first voyage.
On my first voyage from May 1st, 1607 to September 15th, 1607, I traveled north near Greenland. I had 11 crew members on my sailing vessel called the Hopewell. One of them was my 12-year-old favorite son, John, who was our cabin boy. We sailed through extreme cold and harsh wintry conditions. Our wet clothes would freeze, and we had to push away ice from the vessel with poles. And even our ropes froze, causing cuts in our hands. We sailed further north than any other sailors at the time, ending only 600 miles from the North Pole. We finally turned around and sailed back home. We did not find the passage to the Orient, but we did find whales and began the English whaling industry.
Wow, that sounds rough and tragic. How did you survive it?
I seriously have no idea.
That's amazing. You must be Superman.
Who's Superman?
Oh, right. Never mind. You mentioned that was your first voyage. Did you have any other voyages?
Yes, my grandfather's company, the Muscovy Company, made so much money from the whaling industry that they funded my second voyage on the Hopewell. We even strengthened the hull of the vessel to make it safer to sail through the ice. We set off with 13 crew members on April 22nd, 1908. One of the crew members became my nemesis. His name was Robert Jewett. He was a real pain in my side because he didn't like following my orders. On this voyage, I sailed east of Greenland up the north coast of Russia. We found 2 islands and tried to hunt, but we couldn't find any food. Robert Jewett, using his malicious skills, tried to turn the entire crew against me. They threatened mutiny. We returned to England on August 28, 1608. My grandfather's company, the Muscovy Company, was very disappointed and were convinced there was no Northeast Passage. They would not fund any further voyages.
Wow, that's really interesting. Do you have any more voyages that you would like to tell us about? If so, did you video any of them, and are you planning to post them on YouTube?
What is YouTube and what is a video? What is all this nonsense you're talking about?
Oh, never mind. Just forget what I said.
Alright, let me tell you about my third voyage. This voyage was funded by the Dutch East Indian Company, who supplied me with a sailing vessel named the Half Moon. The Dutch East Indian Company ordered me to take the same route I had in my previous voyage, but I wanted to try a new route as well. We set sail on April 6, 1609, from Amsterdam, Holland, with a mix of Dutch and English crew members. One of them was a man I hated, Robert Jewett.
How did the Dutch and English crew members get along?
They didn't. They couldn't even talk to each other because of the language barrier. Also, the Dutch crew members had no idea we would be traveling through extreme cold. After a few weeks, they refused to move on. So since they decided they didn't want to go any further, I shared a letter that I got from a great friend of mine, John Smith. He had discovered many lands in America, and he gave us hope that we would find a Northeast Passage there. We sailed towards America and finally reached on July 17, 1609, and traded some beads for furs with the Indians in Maine. Robert Jewett robbed the Indians we had peacefully traded with. We sailed down to North Carolina and turned back north and entered the New York Harbor on September 6, 1609. It was here that 5 members of our crew were attacked by Indians and 1 died. We took 2 Indian prisoners, but they escaped. We sailed upriver, later to be named after me, and visited the Mohawk Indians. We found that the river would become too shallow for our vessel and realized that it was not the Northeast Passage or the Orient.
Hudson strikes out again.
We sailed back to England instead of Amsterdam because I had not followed orders from the Dutch East Indian Company.
You must feel like a failure. Do you have any plans for a future voyage, or are you ready to call it quits?
Actually, the British have already offered to fund a 4th voyage on the sailing vessel called the Discovery. I am sure this time I will succeed. The Discovery is a grand and sturdy vessel. I will have the largest crew I will ever have. I have ever had. The only trouble I see at this point is that Robert Jewett is one of the crew members yet again. But my son John will be along with me, and some of my most loyal crew members. We plan to head west past Greenland. Let me show you this on the map.
Oh, okay. Good luck to you, Mr. Hudson.
Please, call me Henry.
Poor guy, he doesn't even realize that this voyage will be his last. The rest of the story takes a tragic turn. History tells us that the Discovery set sail on April 17, 1610. Bad weather immediately caused them to stop the boat. The crew became quite restless, and that dog, Robert Jewett, began to spread rumors about poor old Henry. They did pass south of Greenland and headed west upon that furious overfall, which would later be named the Hudson Strait. They dodged so much ice that fear began to strike amongst the crew members. They wanted to turn back, but Henry ordered them to continue on. They followed through the strait and entered into a large bay now known as Hudson Bay. Henry thought it was the Pacific and began looking for a passage to the Orient. The crew became so angry that Robert led a protest. Ice floes filled the bay and the ship got stuck for 7 months. When spring came, the crew was sure they would be heading home. But Hudson had his own plans. He kept them sailing through the bay, still set on finding a passage. Satellites from space now show that there is no such passage, But on June 22nd, 1611, the crew put Hudson, 7 of his loyal sailors, and his son John on a small boat called a shallop in the bay and left them. Hudson and the other crew all were never to be seen or heard of again.
What did you say?
I'd better get going. That's the story. I'm Max Scott, reporting from Old England on October 28th, 1610. 2013.
Who are you talking to?
Bye! Yeah!
What is that thing? This is CEN News. Thank you, Max Scott. That was an amazing and informative interview, and I hope you get home safely. This is Dave Davis from CEN News. Signing off. Have a good night, folks.
Oh, hello, Mr. Hudson. Wait, what?
I went on 4 different voyages. 3 different. That's a blooper. We sailed. Wait, what?
Robert Ewell began to spread rumors about poor old Henry.
Hello, this is CEN News, and thank you, Max Scott. That was a great interview. And now, the cat. Oh, and I hope you get home safe. This is CEN News, Dave Davis, signing off. We then sailed down. And some other stuff. I'm trying to remember. So we sailed down. We set off with 13 crew members on April 22nd, 1908. 1608. I don't even know why I said 1908. That's so much longer from now. Anyways. I can't get off my costume!
What?
Other boots.
Okay, ow!
Okay. No need to do this.
No. Get off! Get off!